Midwest Whitetail is brought to you by Realtree, HOYT Archery, Muddy Outdoors, Fuse Accessories, Frigid Forage, Trophy Rock, Scott Archery, Cabela's, Rocket Broadheads, Execute Scent Control, Bloodsport Arrows, Redneck Hunting Blinds, SCENTMASTER, Yeti Coolers, Quiet Cat, Non-Typical Wildlife Solutions, Deer Grow, and Nikon.
Welcome to Midwest Whitetail. On today's episode, I'm going to continue with the theme that I've been sort of focusing on for the past couple of episodes, and that's terrain features and how we use those features to find tree stand locations, and then really just kind of work our way through that whole process. Today, I'm going to look at secondary ridges. I've got two stands that I need to get out during this off season on a couple of secondary ridges. That's one thing that I lack on this farm, especially on this particular part of the farm, are some really good morning stand locations. And these secondary ridges are perfect for that. I'll talk about that when we get into it. First thing we got to do though is John and I have got to go down and trim up what's left of these shooting lanes on this tree stand that I put up last week. Really, this is the best time that you can possibly get out and do your scouting, get your stand locations set up, because you can go through that area that you're going to put that stand in with a fine-tooth comb and just really come up with the perfect spot versus, you know, during the season I'm always so reluctant to do a lot of scouting. So that's what we're going to do first, then I'm going to come back and we'll talk about these secondary ridges. I'm standing in the shooting lane now. Should be good to go. The only downside here is the fact that the lane is maybe only about 10 feet wide, which is probably okay. Under normal conditions with filming, we like to have a little bit wider spots to film through, but it's thin enough and open enough we should be able to pick up whatever deer are coming through here with the camera. We got three trails. One, there's a second one here, and a third one right behind me about 10 feet or so. All three of them more or less converge right in here. Well, they all converge right in here behind me to my left at the top of that ditch. We opened it up on the other side by dropping a pretty good sized tree, and that gave us about the same, about a 10 foot wide shooting lane out to the field edge. So this one's done. I oiled up the tree stands. I'm happy with this. We're gonna move on and do a little bit of scouting on some of these ridges. Next thing we're going to do now, I'm going to pull my aerial photos out and we're going to drive around to a different spot and get into this whole subject of secondary ridges. The way that I'm going to define the secondary ridge for the purposes of what we're doing here on Midwest Whitetail is a short ridge coming off more of a main longer ridge, and the little secondary ridge usually ends in a point, a distinct point. And there's a reason why that point is important. And once we get into those, looking at these two spots, we'll talk about a little bit more, but just in general, for general purposes, the point a lot of times is where the deer bed on these secondary ridges. So that kind of helps you to understand when you go to set tree stands, what you're dealing with in those spots. I'm going to pull the aerial photo out now and let's take a look at where we're going to next. We're located right here right now in this little small food plot, and we're going to pull out of here and drive around and park on the side. I've got the Quiet Cat here. There's no roads leading over to where we're going next, so we'll pull that out. But you can see the point right here. You can see the shadowing in this valley. The two valleys come together, and you can see this little secondary ridge that forms a point out here. And that's where we're headed. I've never hunted it, and I don't think I've ever walked that part of the farm. All right, I'm sitting right here, right now on the Quiet Cat. That corn food plot is right behind me, and then there's here's that little secondary ridge right in front of me right here. So that's where I'm gonna scout. I'm gonna park here, I'm gonna walk this edge, go in, and then walk out the whole way around the end of that point, and just kind of see what kind of deer movement I've got, and just size it up, and we'll go from there. We're getting pretty close to the spot where I would think about setting up. I like the end of the point usually. Like I said, that's generally where the deer will bed. And during the rut, the bucks know that the does tend to bed out on those points, and that's where they'll cruise through. This one's really thick, except for right out here, it's kind of open. So it's kind of a cool little spot. I'm gonna keep looking here. We're not too far away from where I was building that food plot that we sat in some last year. So, you know, this is more of a morning spot than that. That's more of an evening spot, so it might be kind of nice to have a couple of them here. That way, if you get a buck in here that's a good shooter, we'd be able to hunt him on, you know, 2 different situations. So I'm gonna keep looking, but you can see as we come to the end here, how it just, everything sort of, you know, comes to a V, and then you got these big valleys dropping off. And the deer like to bed where they can see down those valleys with the wind behind them. So generally, if you've got, let's say, this situation would call for more of a northerly wind, maybe a little bit northeasterly. When it be coming through here, a deer bedding off the end of this point could watch down that valley and smell anything behind them. So they kind of got their bases covered. The stuff they can't see, they can smell, and then they're sitting in a really good vantage point. But under normal conditions, especially in the fall, you're gonna find them up on these ridges and on the high ground. So let's keep walking. Just came along the edge of that little small draw, and like I thought, there's a real heavy trail going around the top end of it. So this would be a spot. I don't see any great trees here, but I'm sure there's plenty of them to pick from. Another one of our old favorite cedar trees over there about 20 yards away. This would be a definite spot for the rut. There will be bucks cruising through here. We got a point, little small point there, little point there. This is all part of that whole secondary ridge complex. I'm gonna keep walking, but so far, this is the one that looks the best to me.
Well, it's about time. I figured we'd find one here soon. So look at this one. I think it's got 3 here.
Found an antler?
Yep.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
You know that deer.
Yeah, I'm surprised he shed clear over here. So we saw him at the end of the hunting season. Boy, it'd be almost a mile away, 3/4 of a mile away. He's got a lot of mass, doesn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, especially for a 3-year-old. He should have something pretty good next year, you'd think.
Yeah, he could be a real dandy. This is the smaller side too. The other side was a mainframe 5, and this one's got that little crab claw, but that's pretty cool.
Yep.
Good job, John.
Maybe we'll walk up on his other side.
Yeah. This buck must be covering a lot of ground. He was, because we had him, like I said, clear on the other end of this farm in late or early January, but during the rut, he was up on this end mostly, because the spot where we were hunting over by the redneck blind is probably about 1/4 of a mile from here. He was in that area quite a bit. We'd see him cutting across and heading up in here, and that's where that other cornfield, the other small, well, it's not so small, but the other corn food plot is right there. I'll bet you he's bedded right out on this point most of the time in the fall, because this is, you know, kind of where he was centralized last year. So, you know, hopefully he makes it for a couple more years, because this one will definitely be one that we're going to watch for next year, just to keep an eye on him and see how big he gets. This year, or this fall, I mean, this summer, we're going to try to find this deer, see what he looks like, because he could make a really big jump. So we're going to keep this filed away in our memory. This is going to be the spot where we kind of assume that this is where this buck is living, is out on this little point. So we're going to walk this edge, work our way back to the Quiet Cat, and then head out of here. But I'm going to close up the episode right now, unless we find another antler or something else kind of jumps out at us. I thought we were going to be able to get to 2 of these today, but we just don't have enough time. This one, like I said, I don't know that I'm going to rush in here with a tree stand, but I do know where I would put it now. I'd put it on the head of that little small draw that sort of cut this major point into two little, smaller ones. We talked about it while we were in there, and there's a heavy trail going around it. It's not too far in off the edge of the field here. So I think that's the high odds spot so far. So next week, we're gonna have the Iowa Deer Classic. And we're gonna, that's actually taking place this coming weekend, but we're gonna bring it to you in next week's episode. And then I don't know if we're gonna get to it next week. We've got some shed hunting to show you, and I've got one more of these secondary ridges that I'm gonna look at. And that's an area where I know I'm gonna be hunting this fall. It's over in that area where Touchdown was living. So it's exciting to have this deer kind of halfway starting to figure him out, give him a couple more years, and if he's still living, we're gonna have all kinds of plans for this guy. Well, I appreciate you joining us this week. I'll see you right back here again next week for the next episode of Midwest Whitetail. And remember to always dream big.